Let's see if technical problems are going to come this time. It looks like we are okay. Third time lucky. My big apologies there if you're in the chat. This is my third go at getting this stream going, but it looks like we're okay. If anybody is in the chat and can let me know all is well there, please do so. We are here to discuss today's football story. Thank you, Phonics. Apparently we are live. Bit of a nightmare start there, wasn't it? I do apologise if you're watching on delay. Welcome. You didn't have to endure that complete shower of a start. I hit go 3 times and every time it cancelled me out every time. But here we are to discuss today's football stories. Wednesday today, so we have had the Premier League in and voting on phase 2 of training. A bit more news on Newcastle. A fun link from one of my favourite Championship players and Tranmere's final plea. We'll go through all of that news. Get your comments in as we go, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end. If you're watching on delay, then comment on anything we say afterwards. And if you are here in the stream, please hit that thumbs up button just to help the channel out. So stage 2 of Premier League training, as we have expected, has gone through and been voted for. I think we would have been in a lot of trouble if they'd voted against that, wouldn't we? So on their website today, the Premier League released the following statement saying Premier League shareholders today voted unanimously, so we're assuming that means all 20, to resume contact training, marking another step towards the Premier League season when safe to do so. Squads are now able to train as a group and engage in tackling while minimising any unnecessary close content. Last statement might seem slightly contradictory, but there we go. The Premier League's priorities, the health and well-being of all participants, strict medical protocols are in place to ensure the training ground is the safest environment possible, and the players and staff, will continue to be tested for COVID-19 twice per week. Stage 2 of the return to training protocol has been agreed following consultation with clubs, players, managers, the PFA, LMA and the government. Discussions are ongoing as work continues, resuming the season when conditions allow. So don't know what you guys make of that. We think we've jumped from small groups and no contact to larger groups and some contact. I guess the key to all of this is the testing and not allowing anybody into that training ground with symptoms or in any way sort of struggling with their health. So hopefully we get the move on now and the ramping up, as the term we've heard a million times through this crisis. I think it's important that the players had this vote today, because the vote kind of represents the clubs taking responsibility and saying, okay, this is safe, this is safer than what other people in other industries are being asked to do, and our players should be okay with it. And now, really, when you've got training and testing and the protocols, Matt says, I'm a bit sunburnt. Yes, I am, but I'm enjoying it. I'm going back to work on June the 1st. Now we've got this going, it really does just feel like if the players, and this is a big if, and it applies to all of us in wider society, can steer clear of unnecessary risk, keep quiet, don't go out of the house if we don't need to, and don't put ourselves in any unnecessarily risky situations infection-wise, then everything should be okay. I know that's kind of easier said than done sometimes, but one would hope, and I know I get in trouble for mentioning the sort of social side of this, but one would hope Premier League footballers, given their social standing, should be able to keep away from stuff outside of the training ground, because the training ground seems safe. We can't stop anybody going out and doing something that would catch it, or anybody in their household doing the same. But that now strikes me as, and I don't want to sound a bit mean here, but that's a society problem now, not a football problem. They're doing all they can to make football safe. If a player now catches COVID-19 in wider society, I don't really know what the Premier League, the EFL, the PFA, the FA can do to stop that. They can't, can they? All they can do is make the training ground safe, get things going, and get us ready for a restart. So I think we're looking good now, and given everything else starting in wider society, car showrooms, outdoor markets, year 10 and 12. I'm going back to work in a school on June the 1st, and then all non-essential retail by June the 15th. There's not a sense now, and maybe builders and supermarket workers and NHS might say differently because of the past, but there's not a sense now that one sector's being asked to do stuff that other people aren't. Hey, could all go down in flames, but let's just see. And now we've got to look at, sadly, we've got to look at small outbreaks within clubs now in the same way as we look at injuries, that they're bad luck and that they can happen, and that as long as we're policing things to be safe, then this should be okay to move on. They got through it in Germany, so hopefully this is a big step forward, as the Premier League said in their statements. Get your thoughts in. Do you agree with me now that football can't really do a lot more than the testing, the protocols, and it's now in the same way it's up to you and me as normal civilians to keep ourselves safe? Footballers are just going to have to do the same outside of the training ground, and all should be well, hopefully, in an ideal scenario. Get your thoughts and comments in on that. Phase 2 of training, and has the responsibility moved out for a while? Rico says Haaland ruled out for a while. Big loss. That might be something we can talk about later, about muscle injuries. I know Haaland at Dortmund had a problem, and I heard on a podcast this morning about the extra risk these players have now got. They've got to work in really gently, and football is an interesting one, isn't it? Because you can predict what a 100-metre runner's going to do, can't you? But you can't predict where a footballer's going to have to go. Nidan says, I've missed announcements today. Is football back up and running? No, sadly it's not, but we're on the way, Nidan. Right, a little bit of extra on the Newcastle takeover. That is quite wide news, because we're expecting Mike Ashley to go into an EFL club as and when this is done. So it does affect more than one division. And I think for my Championship viewers as well, if it possibly unlocks Steve Bruce, that's another highly regarded Championship manager available if he comes back down this direction, which we think he might. Hey, he could stay in the job there at Newcastle. So the issue Newcastle have got now, it's not a human rights issue actually. We thought the Saudis would be held up for human rights stuff, but it's more to do with a link to Pirate TV, which if you followed anything Richard Keys, him, ex of Sky, has said, then you'll know all about this. Rico says Man United have released their players' training regimes and results on the website. Looks like they're ready to go. Gary Neville was quite in that place this morning on Sky as well, saying treat this more like coming back from an injury than coming back from a pre-season, given the length of time. But we are sort of coming up to a pre-season length of time. Nick says Mike Ashley, stay away from Ipswich. Yeah, we've had that debate already, haven't we? So the Newcastle Chronicle reports the World Trade Organization has refused to directly comment on claims that its report looking into TV piracy in the Middle East has found that the Saudi Arabian government is behind it. If the claims, which were broken by The Guardian, are true, it could provide a major obstacle to Saudi Arabia's public investment fund getting the green light from the Premier League to sign their buyout of Newcastle United. The World Trade Organization confirmed to the Chronicle that a panel has been looking into the actions of TV piracy within Saudi since December 2018. We can confirm that Qatar initiated a World Trade Organization dispute settlement against Saudi in October 2018 regarding the protection of intellectual property rights, and a panel that was established in 2018 to review Qatar's claims. The panel proceedings and panel process remain confidential until the final report is circulated to World Trade Organization members. All looks a little bit murky doesn't it? And obviously the big elephant in the room is that the intellectual property we're talking about is Premier League games, isn't it? And the piracy and illegal alleged distribution of those. Let me know what you think. If they get around it, is that enough for you, for these people to be fit and proper owners? If you were in a Newcastle fan's position, would you just say screw it and take the money, and your self-interest kicks in and you just want to win and have that extra advantage that Saudi money might give you? Is there a chance that it could come in and be a huge disaster? We've seen takeovers happen before and people think it's going to be better, and then we get lots of pundits trailing out, be careful what you wish for, and it's actually not. So let me know what you think on that Newcastle stuff. Seems to be being held up slightly by this, because we heard in the last week that it was very, very close to happening. But yeah, there you go. Right, down into the Championship, and anyone who watches the channel regularly knows I don't need an excuse to talk about Benrahma, who's one of the best players to watch in the Championship. Plays for Brentford, normally off the left-hand side, cutting in like a new age wide player in a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. Can do it all, can play number 10. Great player. Obviously there's Mitrovic at Fulham and Phillips at Leeds, but in terms of a pure creator, Benrahma, probably the best in the division. Really, really fun to watch. So he's been linked heavily today with Chelsea, and I think it was the Sun reporting that talks had already happened. I mean, look, talks could be they've phoned up the agent and told they're interested. So there we go. But it was one of those that reminded me a bit of Ronaldo at Manchester United, when Ferguson said, "Look, I'm going to let you go. Sign a new contract. Give me one more year, and we'll all be happy at the end of it." That's kind of what they did with Benrahma in the summer. If you remember, it took him a while to come back, but I think the new contract went in 2 years and an extra option. So Brentford have got a good bargaining position here, because they basically got him on a 3-year deal. So I'm sure Chelsea would pay a pretty penny. Aston Villa were in for him. Dean Smith, obviously ex-Brentford manager. 14 million turned down. But remember, with the sales of Konza and then Mopai for an absolute ton of money, that was over 20 million. Then we will see. Matt says pocketed by Matty Cash in both fixtures. I might be able to debunk that, Matt, because I was at the game at Brentford, and I think rather than that being a one player pocket in the other, that was a very good Forest team-shaped defensive performance that actually didn't allow Benrahma to get the ball at all. But yeah, Cash played it well, and yeah, Benrahma and the Brentford boys didn't have a sniff there. Good stable performance that by Forest, I remember at the time. So if Championship clubs do vote to curtail, that lands Brentford in the playoffs. Pertinent to Matt's comment there, because they'd be against Forest, so we get a repeat of that one. So Benrahma may only have 3 games left maximum here for the Bees. The deal is said to be in the next transfer window, not that we know exactly when that's going to be. And Brentford have got a good model. They've been happy to sell at the right price before. Somewhat of a recruitment gold standard in the Championship, haven't they, in terms of raising money? Nidan says Brentford's money ball works again. I agree. And as I said, 2 years left on the contract and an extra year's option. So, and also just think about it geographically as well. Brentford and Chelsea not far apart. It makes a lot of sense. And I don't really think it matters whether Brentford were to win the playoffs or not. I think, you know, that sale is going to happen. And I think us Championship fans always like to see one of our own go up and have a go at the Premier League. Lee says they're an amazing club for finding players, getting results from them and shifting them on. I totally agree with Lee's sentiment there. And I've called it Brentford tax in the past now. People are now prepared to overpay for Brentford players as well, because they know the quality that's come out from there as well. So let me know your thoughts. Benrahma to Chelsea. Good deal all round. Good deal for Chelsea. Good deal for Brentford. Good deal for the player. Let me know what you think. We'll miss him in the Championship, but hey, it's the second tier, isn't it? You know the good players don't stay there for long, do they? Final story, and then we'll do some questions. Hit the thumbs up button if you're watching live in the feed. Tranmere, bless them. Don't want to sound patronising. Matt's come back. We'll beat them in the playoffs. Forest defence pocketing the overrated Brentford forwards. Deary me. Fat Frank could do a job with him. Yeah, and Lampard would have that knowledge of coming up against him firsthand when he was Derby manager. Right, we're going to talk Tranmere because they're the big outspoken voice now against the League One vote and what they're voting on. Remember, we're voting to either stop and judge things on points per game, in which case Tranmere would be relegated, or we're going to play on. I went through the likely votes yesterday, and obviously most of us expect Tranmere to vote to play on. They have published on their website their final sort of Hail Mary for what they want to happen. And this is what it says. Let me know what you think of this proposal here by Mark Palios. And someone corrected me the other day, ex-chief exec of the FA, I think, Palios. Very outspoken since the lockdown has happened. Tranmere is requesting the EFL board to put a proposal forward for EFL clubs to vote on. We recognise the proposal may need some additional work around the detail. Come on. In our view, that is something which should be done in collaboration with clubs. It's a bit late, Mark, isn't it? This would be routine stakeholder management. We see no reason why it would need to be a time-consuming exercise. Jamie says, thought they had 5 days. Yeah, here. Matt says, Peterborough being robbed of a playoff spot could see them easily making autos with Tony on fire and bottom sides to play. There you go. I think that's Tranmere's argument, Matt, as well. If the decision is made, the Tranmere statement goes on, by the division to end their season now or indeed at some point. A, the league table is calculated by a simple points per game basis, but wait for the detail. B, there is then applied to the table the statistical average actual margin for error over the last 3 years being plus 6.3 or minus 5.5%. So Tranmere are arguing that the points per game positions compared to what actually happens can move by up to 6.3% up or 5.4% down. And there was I thinking we were trying to work on solid information, not what might happen. I suppose they'd argue that that is solid information, but this does seem a little bit far-fetched. Now, teams in the automatic promotion spots, even where the margin for error is applied, should be automatically promoted. I don't get why margin for error counts at the bottom and not the top, Mark Palios, but there you go. You can see where I'm going with this proposal. Teams in the playoff places, or who could be in the playoff places where margin for error is applied. So this would suit your Peterboroughs and Sunderlands because they could add on their 0.63, and I'm sure they'd be in the playoffs. Is applied, should be invited to compete in a playoff tournament. So if you're within the kind of sweet spot that Tranmere are talking about, you extend the playoffs by that many teams that are in it. I don't see why that wouldn't apply for someone who's finishing third and within 5% of or 6% of second place, Mark. But there you go. Teams in the playoff places who could be in where the margin for error... Oh, sorry, I just said that one, excuse me. There would either be no relegations or relegations are only of clubs who would be relegated even after the margin of error has been applied. Wow, there we go. But hey, so that's Tranmere's proposal for playing on, which obviously would suit them and see them allowed to not be relegated because of the margin for error. What they don't then say is what happens to League Two, and some would then not be able to be promoted because they wouldn't be able to go down. I understand it's not fair. It doesn't feel fair. Your best player getting injured by an unfair tackle isn't fair. Someone being unwell on the day of a game, getting food poisoning, isn't fair. The floodlights going out at the end of the game isn't fair. Life's not fair, and this isn't fair on anybody. It does seem to be getting Tranmere, but I'm sorry, I'm not really with that margin for error. And why only 3 years? Why not go back 5 years or 7 years, or why not just use the previous year? I don't think anyone's really going to go for that, and I think the vote carries on as is. But let me know whether you think there's any merit in what Mark Palios has said. Big hole in it for me is that it applies at the bottom and not the top. That just smacks of self-interest, doesn't it? But there we go. Lee says, imagine if they used VAR to look back at all the games this season and recalculate the results. There you go. Matt says, when will the results of the vote be published? I don't know. I really don't know. Joey Barton said 5 days last Thursday, but then we're getting more meetings, etc. So I'm really not sure. I'm sure we'll find out. Noel says, due to the current circumstances, do you think for 1 year only that FIFA should allow an open transfer market? That's been suggested by the Pompey owner early in the lockdown. My answer to that, Noel, would be if it stops clubs going out of business. If, for example, I don't know, Rochdale, they had that young player, didn't they? Could make a sale at a point outside of a transfer window and it provided them the funds, then maybe it should be. We need to look at the funds going on, but I don't think it's a bad idea. Martin asked, thoughts on Nigel Adkins being linked to Luton's second favourite? I would prefer Kelvin Davis. Obviously, Nigel Adkins, much better proven than Kelvin Davis. Kelvin Davis, much better links with Luton. I'm a big Kelvin Davis fan from his days at Ipswich. I don't know his coaching qualifications. Martin, you probably know more than me. I would say Nigel Adkins, I know we mock him for his David Brentism. He's a good manager. And one thing he did that was very smart is get out of Hull when those parachute payments ran out. I said that on the video before Grant McCann went in. I thought that was smart. I did expect him to be back earlier than he was. Matt says open market would be balmy. Needown says Atkins is a good manager. Noel agrees. Yeah, so I don't know how long they'd extend the window for, but I don't know. I'm sure they could make some caveats to it, couldn't they? Where you could make an emergency sale if you needed to. I don't know. I'm pulling ideas out of the air. If you're still here, hit the thumbs up button and get your questions in. We'll try and go for a little bit longer. I'm a little bit more early today than was yesterday. I wanted to watch that Borussia Dortmund match. Martin says the vote is Monday. Rico says feels like there'll be unforeseen circumstances we don't know about. Another good positive comment on Adkins there. Certainly from a championship point of view, I think Adkins is proven now and has been a good manager for a while, really. Obviously peaking at Scunthorpe and Southampton, but didn't do a bad job at all at Hull, did he? Noel says Jude Bellingham to Man United for 40 million is now the word in the Midlands. That's a long-running one, isn't it? Just promote Leeds. Everyone will be happy with that, right? There we go. Why don't clubs do a Zoom chat with 100 fans? German football is fixed in Bayern's favour. Dortmund, yeah, had a stonewall penalty. Yeah, I do agree. James says, glad to see Lawrence Bassini has jogged on. I didn't know about that, James. He normally appears, been in the Charlton Takeover sort of picture, hasn't he? Chris asked, Ben, how do you think Koku has done in his first season? Well, given what's been thrown at him, Chris, I don't think he's done that badly, has he? Obviously, Lampard had the 6th place finish, but we know that the longer and longer Derby stays in the Championship without parachute payments, the harder it is for Mel Morris to creatively pull. Lee, send it again in a second. I'll answer it. Sorry, it disappeared. To pull rabbits out of hats. I did find Derby a little bit too stiff in terms of instructions. Could have played with a bit more freedom. I think Rooney, well, obviously Rooney's going to help any team at Championship level. I think he's done a fairly decent job. I think anything below sort of 10th or 11th would, taken into account there might be an FFP deduction. But yeah, I think he's done pretty well and had a lot of stuff thrown at him. Lee, remind me what the question was, buddy. Sorry, it disappears as we go. Matt says 1 year anniversary of Derby using the Villa. There we go. When it comes to a Zoom chat of 100 fans during their games and project the group chat onto big screens, that would be nice. Can you trust English football fans not to do anything ridiculous and maybe we might see some nudity and things of that nature on the Zoom chat. It's just a matter of, can you trust football fans? But yeah, I think one of the German clubs or one of the Korean clubs was wanting to do that. Someone pointed in Koku, fairly diplomatic through the face of the FFP and the Keogh trio and Lawrence and Bennett as well. So yeah, Lee says that's the point. There we go. Chris says it's been an interesting year for the Rams fans. I did a video on this with Justin Peach from the EFL podcast. Yeah, James says Sky Sports News reported Lawrence Bassini pulled out of the takeover today. Good news. Was he ever really doing it? What's Keogh doing now? Has he got a new club? Still injured or retired? If any Derby are in the chat and can let me know about Keogh, I'm not 100% sure. I know he was essentially sacked and had his contract terminated. I think we'll see him pop up. I don't know where. Ex-Coventry player, isn't he? I wonder if he'd go back to Coventry if and when they are promoted. Noel says taking driving lessons. That's terribly disrespectful and naughty, Noel. There we go. Keogh has opened a fish and chip shop, says Lee. There we go. Chris says injured still, appealing his sackage. Rico says searching for his eyelids. There we go. Phonics says can't see him coming back. I think he'll try and come back at some level. I think we forget about Keogh. He was a good player and played an absolute ton of games and has a ton of experience. Struggled a little bit with Lampard's play out the back. But look, I was at Leeds for that playoff semi-final, and to get that winning goal, it was Keogh that moved that whole team forward 5-10 yards after Berardi got sent off. There you go, Burton, that's not a bad shout by Harry. And stepped out and smelt blood. And I give Keogh a lot of credit for, because you wonder with Bielsa, especially given Malone got sent off in the end, whether Derby would have actually survived extra time there. So I do, Keogh, really key part in that playoff semi-final win, I think. Let me know if there's any more questions. If you're in the chat, do hit the thumbs up button. Let me have a swig of my drink. And we'll see if we can get any more. If you're watching on delay, get involved in the comments on any of the things. Good, some Derby County issues. Welcome Captain Nat with a Sheffield Wednesday badge to the chat here. I'll procrastinate for a little bit longer and see if we get any questions coming in. Rico says, don't blame Casilla for that first goal, all Cooper's fault. I don't think Leeds fans want to go back through that, do they? Who would win the Championship playoffs, says Matt, and Kong asks, are Brentford going to be allowed to play at Griffin Park after the season was supposed to be finished? I think they'll play their playoff games at Griffin Park if it stops. And I've forgotten the other question that came in. Who would win in the playoffs? Looking very, very tight, those ones, isn't it? You think Preston, maybe they're one of these teams that would struggle behind closed doors and lose a bit of the intensity. And Forest have had a hold over Brentford so far, haven't they? Which might mean a Fulham Forest final. Look, I think Forest are capable of blocking anybody out over 3 games. I think Brentford are capable of, and Fulham of scoring past people for over 3 games. Preston, I do think behind closed doors, I think they're so good at home, Preston, and that would be where they would win a semi-final. Maybe does that hinder them the most? I don't know. But certainly some interesting games, and I do like the matchup between... Matt says we'll be scared of having to play a final against Fulham. Yeah, you think Fulham rise to the occasion? That depends. Would they still even have the final at Wembley? Who knows? Unlikely. I'm sure some scheduling issues, although I'm sure the books are nice and empty at the moment. So we'll see how that all pans out. Hey, we could play on. They could vote to continue. I think there's going to be pressure for that. Nat says big chances needed at Wednesday. Younger players needed. Chris says, hit that like button, guys. Yes, hit the like button. Wednesday, interesting, might be one of the places where Mike Ashley is linked there. I'm sure Mr. Chansuri would sell at the right price. Wouldn't he? John says, who's likely to go down to the Championship and who would you pick? John has a West Ham badge, and we've discussed this before. Sadly, John, from a YouTube point of view, covering the Championship, I would love West Ham in the Championship. Great club. Love to go down and see some games there. Norwich looks likely, doesn't it? Villa, nice big club. Always good to have some big clubs back, isn't it? Bournemouth's a bit more of a trek, isn't it? Can they get over the hump when we do play on? Who knows? James said, would love an away day at the London Stadium. I'm sure every player and every fan in the Championship would. Teams would raise their game to go down there. Rico says, I think a lot of Leeds players would shine without the pressure of Ellen Road. Yeah, maybe. Some argument that Leeds, prefer away from home. It's one of those weird places, Ellen Road, where it works either way. When they get a bit nervous, you can see it does affect the players. And we have seen, those Wigan games and obviously the Derby playoff semi-final, where you could argue that even though the Leeds fans, brilliant, swinging the scarves around, as I was there at that playoff semi-final, it was incredible, but once those two quick goals happened, he got very nervous very quickly. David says, Mike Ashley to buy Sunderland. There we go. Jeff says, Bournemouth will never go back up if they are relegated. There's something in that, isn't there? Size of club there. Villa, Norwich and Bournemouth, says Noel. Needown says, good shout, although we gutted not to be there. Nat says he'd love Chris Waddle to have. What a great player Chris Waddle was for Sheffield Wednesday. How will they stop people crowding stadiums after the break? Hopefully football fans are not dumb enough to go and do it, and some strong policing, some strong words from clubs just to say, look, you're not helping. There's going to be cameras up. You're going to get nicked. Don't show up. Hopefully, whoever asked that question. Bielsa drills the players in patterns of play. Yeah, I agree with Mike there that, like Norwich were and like Sheffield United and Villa to a certain extent, Fulham probably as well, teams who are drilled on pattern of play and you're not needing intensity and crowd to get you up, would work. Jamie says, we are not idiots. There we go. I agree. Last home game of the season was Bielsa's 100th at Leeds, and we could have gone up on that day. Ewan says, null and void. I think we passed null and void now. Ewan, not in the options for the vote. Yes, Matt asked about proposed kick-off times. I saw, was it the Daily Mirror today, said the Premier League are going to go 12 p.m, 2 p.m, 4 p.m, 6 p.m, 8 p.m, and then the same on a Sunday. I must admit, I'm one of the people who, by about the 28th of December, goes, man, I've had too much football now over Christmas. Can we just stop for a few days? So, but look, there's no crowds there. There'll be the demand. They will get the viewing figures. And if the Premier League wants this crazy idea of giving the games to free-to-air TV, then I think there's going to be the uptake for it. So Rico says, nah, can't get too much. How many people in this chat are going to watch more than one consecutive games? I need a break. Look, I know I was the crazy madman who did Villa Park for one playoff semi-final at midday, and I was at Derby for Derby Leeds on the same day at 4 o'clock. That worked out nicely. Check the video for that. But yeah, two games in a day is tough going, especially if you're analysing them. There we go. Robert says to increase safety, reduce playoffs to 3 matches, highest plays, lowest. Yeah, they're talking about playoffs with 4 teams. So, but what I will say is the EFL have given themselves an out whereby if we start and then we have to stop again, they can rejig the playoffs. So there we go. Lee says, believes the likes of Liverpool Leeds will have tens of thousands at the grounds. People have just got to be more responsible than that, though, haven't they? We just cannot see that. And there needs to be big words from the clubs. There needs to be, we need Van Dijk, we need Hernandez and Calvin Phillips to be making videos saying, do not come to the ground, do not come. They're going to need to, if there's a threat of that, they're going to need to fence things off and not let people get near the ground. And that would be a shame, because I think the general public, I know we're all football fans in here and I respect each and every one of you, but the general public do not want to see loads of police around the grounds. Be interested, I've said a few times, I think that once the grounds are open, that clubs will and should be asking, can we get some fans in, i.e. in the hospitality boxes, whether there's a safe way even if it's 50. Even open the disabled bit. Let the disabled guys in social distance. You can police the disabled bits. They're much smaller. I think they'll be going, can we get some fans going back in? So we will see. I guess you're going to get people again with the it's unfair type argument. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I just hope football fans can be sensible about it. Right. We've gone 35 minutes. I'm trying to think what's happening tomorrow. What's happening tomorrow is, I think we'll get more idea on League One and Championship voting, no doubt. I think we get in the TV rebate discussion, which is quite a big one for the EFL as well, because if the Premier League are going to allow money to go out, then maybe less goes down to the EFL. Matt says clubs would be accused of discrimination if they only let small numbers in. Of course they would. Yeah, sad, because I'm afraid the 2020 attitude really is that if someone else gets something, I'm missing out, isn't it? And yeah, you would get people moaning. But hey, even if I have to miss out, I'm sure I can stand aside and let some people get into the ground. For God's sake, I remember I was named on a Sheffield United forum. Why has he got a ticket for that big game away with Leeds? So yeah, people get funny about that. What sort of viewing figures does this championship get? Much less than the Premier League, unless it's Leeds or Forest or Sheffield Wednesday or any of those bigger clubs with bigger support bases. Yeah, if it is Hull v Barnsley, and again, as Needham says, nothing against those clubs, but if we can look at the attendances that people draw, yeah, not massive. But that said, even in the Premier League, if one of those big teams aren't playing, and it's, I don't know, let's be mean to some teams, Burnley versus Norwich, less numbers there. Again, and I'm not going to respond to that one, but I take your point. Did you watch Lee Clark interview Ben on Birmingham YouTube channel? I didn't, no. Send me a tweet, let me know, send me the link to that and let me know what was said. Lee Clark, I thought he would have had a better managerial career than he did. James says, thoughts on Hugh Jenkins, possibly buying Charlton. I'm sure we got some Swansea on the channel or in the chat. We'd rather have Hugh Jenkins than Bassini or whatever the guys of the names of the guys you've got at the moment, or Mr. De Chatelet. So, yeah, Swansea were very successful under him. Some accusations that he fulfilled his own needs ahead of the club at some points in terms of pulling money out, allegedly. Don't want to go too crazy on it. There'll be Swansea in watching the channel that will know more about it than me. But he certainly looks like the best name in the frame at the moment for Charlton. God, those poor Charlton fans having to go through all these ownership changes and dubious owners. Right, I think I've got to go and walk the dogs and then do some exercise. So I'm going to bid everybody farewell. Ideas on voting. Currently got Ipswich on career mode on FIFA. Why would you put yourself through that? Deary me. So I'm going to bid you all farewell. Big news, I'll come straight on and do a video, but likely to do a stream tomorrow. I'm back at work next week, but we'll try and do the streams in the evening. I'll try and accumulate the knowledge on my drive home and check things during the day. So thank you everybody as ever for watching. Hit the like button, and if you want to support me monetarily, if we're out of the woods and people aren't struggling with money through the crisis, you can do the super chat or the donation, or support me on Patreon. Working towards maybe making this a part-time or a full-time venture. That would be an ambition of mine if you guys help out. Obviously, no obligation to do so. Your knowledge and your approval in the chat is wonderful. Everyone's mocking my plugging the like, so I'll say one more time. Hit the thumbs up button and I'll see you all very soon. Thank you everybody being kind in the chat. And thank you as always for your input. If you're watching on delay, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and I will see you all very soon. Over and out, guys. Take care, all of you.